It's the 1st of November 2025, and when I was at school, this was the first day of winter. Correct me if I'm wrong, there seems to be some debate over that. I'm not too worried. It's a bright day after a lot of wet. The ground in Ireland now is soaking wet. Very, very difficult even to walk on in places because of a lot of rain, and that may be a tail end of hurricanes that are going about. But no escape from Nanny state. Now, I did a video for you there on the Nanny state and the impact it has on the private ownership of guns, and that I accept whatever the Nanny state dictates, whatever warnings and all of that, and we just have to live with it. To me, my sport and my recreational activities can be limited a bit. It still won't drive me out of Ireland because I am able to produce my beef cattle here, and I intend to continue that. So it's not a big deal, but it's something to be considered as we consider our approach to government policy on our freedoms. Now, as I approach close to 12,000 subscribers, and you're all very welcome, roughly at the rate of 10 per day, I suppose to some degree I would be considered an influencer. In other words, that I influence public opinion, and that's exactly why I'm here. Nobody mentions me. I was never mentioned by any politician because they know the minute they mention Val Martin, I'll challenge them to a debate, and they can't win that debate. But still, I influence. You look at it. This time last year, right? Maybe 18 months. Go back 18 months. Look at the attitude to migration. Look at the attitude to enriching certain people for housing them. And that has changed. Why has it changed? Well, it's because of the patriots who stand up, and I appeal to patriots: don't use violence, do not injure guards or soldiers or anyone like that. Do not damage property, that's all I can say. But you can peacefully demonstrate, and that's a good thing. Now, so you look at how that has changed. That didn't change because Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael and Sinn Féin wanted to change. It changed because of pressure from the ordinary people and reasoned argument. So the recent presidential election in Ireland got 25% of the total population for Catherine Connolly, and that is nannyism at its utmost. If you want to debate that or post underneath, I'll review what I'm saying. You couldn't have a more nanny president than Catherine Connolly. And they want to deny the fact that we live in a highly competitive world where war is brewing, where Europe has nothing to give, only words. It has no munitions. The munitions factories are few and far between. Because they penalise private ownership of firearms, we would have kept the thing going by buying ammunition and having a bit of sport and field days and clay pigeon shoots and that, but they've really almost, not completely, cut it down and hated it and convinced us that we're a subspecies. And so when it comes to fighting the wars, the likes of me, an influencer with 12,000 views for now, will influence people against having anything to do with the present military campaign of the European Union. And I predict that you're going to see recruiting campaigns for the Irish Defence Forces in the not too distant future. And I will be saying, no, we're not going. In the UK, you could fit the whole Defence Forces into a football stadium. Why? Because all we got from the EU and all of these was climate change. We were told for 20 years the only thing to worry about is climate change, and the only cure is the wind farm and the solar farm. Now we see that they don't seem to care about climate change. Why aren't they trying to influence the US government, the Russian government, the Chinese government? The reason is that Europe is an irrelevance. It's an irrelevant nanny state run by nannies with nanny everywhere. And an example of that is the Council of Europe, their recent report. Now, the Council of Europe is not the European Union, but it's very closely connected to it. All members of the European Union are members of the Council of Europe. Now, I'll have to look it up a bit more. I don't know whether it's worthwhile. I don't think we have any members in Ireland. If we have, well, I'd like to go up and mount a picket on their homes and cause a bit of trouble to them. Now, in the case of the International Court of Human Rights, which would, if it could, stop the President Trump's deportation of illegal migrants and all the criminals and all of this stuff, in that, but it's not doing it, but it's doing it on other countries. He has put sanctions on the judges themselves. And the reports had it that he's cutting off their banking details and economic sanctions on the judges of the International Court of Human Rights. And I know he would be fit for that. And good on him. I'd love to see them left with nothing. Well, that proves that the Council of Europe the same can be done. The Council of Europe includes Greenland and Iceland. And essentially, it's more nanny, nanny, nanny. That's essentially what it is. The European Court of Human Rights, you can have a killer, you can make one mistake in his deport documents, and they'll leave him in your country for good. Over in Poland, they're now turning on the Ukraine escapees, people who run from Ukraine, and they were getting full dole. I would have given them just enough to get by on. So now they're going to cut the dole, and now they're trying to toy with the idea of forcing them back into Zelensky's meat grinder. So with all that going on, it's hard to keep track. And someone posted here about the Venezuelan Trump situation and about whether drugs are being brought in. And someone says, how would these boats get across? Well, they could meet up with big ships. Surely the United States could track them, wait till the boats are fully loaded, the big ships or whatever they are, big boats, and pursue them and stop them when they go to enter US waters. That's a mystery. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just saying that's the way it is. But I do know one thing for certain. You are going to see the drug addicts of the United States in a desperate way, totally and utterly screwed up, mentally ill, looking for the next fix, and no fix available. And the little bit of drugs that will be there, they will kill over it. And that's a good thing. In my view, that's good, because Trump has said in a speech on the US ship George Washington in a Japan harbor to thousands of US and Japanese service people, he has said that when he gets it sorted on the sea, he's going to tackle the Mexican border. So this idea that he's on the wrong place doesn't understand the facts. The facts is the drugs come in by air. That's well walloped. We had a pilot convicted in Ireland recently of taking in drugs on a private aircraft. We have great work in Ireland with the Gardaí. That has to be said. With the drugs anyway. We give fair play. They've got tons of the stuff. So there must be starvation for the drugs in Ireland. And if I had my way, you wouldn't get a matchbox full of drugs. You wouldn't get a matchbox full of drugs. And the people that's bringing it in would be forced to do hard labour for a long time till they wouldn't want any more. And they get no cigarettes or booze either. Anyway, that's another day's work. But that's what Trump is at. He's playing the tough man. And he's more or less said on the US ship George Washington that he has the military behind him. I think he probably has. He gave a speech which doesn't make a lot of sense about all the places he brought peace to, but he probably has the military behind him. And if he is the military, well, then the fears of the lefties that he'll be a king might come to pass. He might take over and run another 4 years, but I wouldn't worry too much about it. But the thing is that he also explained another matter here that I made about Pete Hegseth being connected with George Soros. But in that speech on the USS George Washington, I think I'll try and post a link underneath, he said that Pete Hegseth was working for a company and he was sick of it. And that he couldn't wait, and when he was offered the job, as the job he has now, he's a Secretary for Defence, isn't that it? I think that's it. When he was offered that job, he jumped at it. And he told me, he says himself, he couldn't believe he got this offer. And that could be right, because I was in the Garda Síochána. I mean, they made it impossible for me to investigate crime. They tried to take all my people off me. They tried to interrupt every effort and make sure that any intelligence I was getting was given it over to high officers who then appropriated to lesser ignoramuses type of inspectors and other people, and they got the glory and I didn't. And of course I stuck in and I wouldn't go along with that. So when I retired from the Guards, it was been there, done that, and glad to be rid of it. So that was the thing. Pete Hexet could be in the same situation. Now, we're going to look at the European Court of Human Rights, what it has said, and I'm going to read it out to you now. Not the European Court of Human Rights, the Council of Europe, which is close to the EU but not exactly the same thing. A new report by the Council of Europe that found hate speech is widespread in Ireland has put fresh pressure on the government to bring forward legislation. They had very hard to define hate speech, but anyway, that shows you what these people are doing. These people need to have their bank accounts frozen, the same as Trump will do. They won't pull it on Trump's America. Justice Minister Jim O'Callaghan previously ruled out introducing controversial hate speech. He's a Fianna Fáil minister and he's lined up for the next Prime Minister, but I would appeal to Fianna Fáil people, leave Micheál Martin there. He's the best thing I ever had on my side, because he's such an absolute jackass and an idiot and a big nanny head on him. They should put a pair of knickers on him and let him out walking up the street. The longer he's there, the less votes they'll get. Mr. Callaghan has stood firm on the issue despite the threat of legal action from the EU. So now we have the EU involved. The EU has threatened legal action against Ireland for not implementing its hate speech directives or whatever they are. So legal action on hate speech. There's no word about the failure to comply with the SCA directive or any of this. No, that's all right. You can kill 50,000 trout with the Derrybrain wind farm, and you can kill thousands of grouse and exterminate the species, and no assessment on it all. But when it's for hate speech, they're on your house. Yesterday, the Council of Europe anti-racism body, the European Commission Against Racism and Intolerance, ECRI. Have we anyone in Ireland in that? Can we get in contact? Can I walk up someday, which you're entitled to do, and walk into their house some Sunday morning and say hello? They can't do anything, only ask you leave. That's the law. So anyway, claimed the measure was necessary as hate speech remains widespread in the Republic. Well, what is hate speech? That's the big question. I don't see it around here. I see lesbian couples building houses. We voted for them to have same-sex marriage. We give them equal rights and all. And we thought that would do. That we'd done our bit. Go on now, live your lives and get on with it. No. They want the whole hog. They want the men beating Katie Taylor and beating Irish boxing women. And they want the Olympic Games marred with the same. And they want to have the right of the LBGPQ and the lads with the knickers on them and make them generals in the army, so that Irish Lieutenant will say Michelle Thompson, who happened to have the same genitals as any other man, but claims he's transitioned. He has to get on, he has to be put in charge. And then the question is about the mental capabilities of those people to make decisions where people's lives are at stake. Maybe send you out an order from a cozy office somewhere to go up and take a mountain in Ukraine and hold it against the Russian advance, and you haven't a hope. What balance have they? What skill have they? But no, once they have the fishnet tights and the knickers on them, that's all that matters. So now, that's all right. So we'll continue reading here. So anti-immigration rhetoric was of particular concern, the report authors. How do they know? Is it my channel? Why you want to interview me? He said hate speech spans across news media. There's no hate speech in RTE, and RTE is strictly woke. That's a lie. There's no hate speech on channels like Northern Sound, LMFM, Midland Radio, none whatsoever. It's only on these independent channels that you get a comment like I make, which I say is not hate speech, it's reality. Now, across the media, online platforms, that's me, political and including recent documented examples of politicians' reaction to event in local communities resulting in informed responses, fueling hatred and escalation tensions further. Why are they bringing in people whom we don't know who they are? There already is a law making it illegal for you to name a protected person, and you don't know who a protected person is. Most discriminatory content is motivated by anti-immigrant, anti-black, African, anti-refugee, asylum seeker sentiments. What about Muslims? What about cutting the heads of two gay men? Any word of that? What about the rape of a 6-year-old girl by people of that persuasion? What about the attack in Parnell Square? What about the attack on women and the killing of people? No word of that at all. That doesn't apply at all. The ECRI has expressed concern about the stark decline in the mental health of the LGBTQ people. So why is there a decline? Can't they go ahead and do their thing? What are we supposed to do? Should there's mental health services? No. What this crowd wants, if they're LGBTQ and their mental health is not in good condition, make the officers in the Irish Army, superintendents in the Gardaí and captains of industry, and then they'll feel, oh, I have a contribution to make. Whereas down through the years in the Garda Síochána, good performers were kept down and those with connection with politicians were put in charge and umpteen crimes were let go and the people who didn't do anything were all promoted. I talked to a scenes of crime examiner who retired from the Guards about, it must be 2 years now since I spoke to the person, and he said that they were not investigating crime. He went out to crime scenes, he could tell the local guards who did it and the local guards would not act. So that's the reality. Now, so we'll read this again. The ECRI also expressed concern about the stark decline in the mental health of LGBT people and the fact that so-called conversion practices, that's the castration of boys and the cutting off of girls' breasts, and medically unnecessary non-consensual surgeries. So that if you have to, we'd say that a boy has cancer of the testicles. That would be medical. It could be necessary after due process to remove his testicles. That could be, or maybe a girl's ovaries. We're not talking about that, but you see, they shove this in to try and confuse you, you see. So non-consensual surgeries performed on intersex children. Who decides what is intersex? How does a child of 10 know whether he's intersex or not? Intersex. No, it's another new buzzword, a big concept. These people are obviously getting paid in this Council of Europe. So now we'll read that again. And the non-consensual surgeries performed on intersex children were still not prohibited in Ireland. Now, you see how confused and convoluted and conflated these people are. If you read this sentence, they're saying that Ireland has not outlawed the castration of boys and the removal of girls' mammary glands before their age of consent. So it seems to be saying that they should outlaw it. That's a direct confusion to the acknowledgement of gay people, transvestites, transsexuals and all of this. You can't have it both ways. You can't have a law against operating on children and a law that condemns those who try to stop it. I condemned the operation on children. Elon Musk's son was castrated without his consent because the school was woke and destroyed the chap, and that's what made him the way he is, the injustice of that. And yet this Council of Europe says, oh, we should have outlaw the practice. Let me read it again. It also expressed concern about the stark decline in mental health of LGBTQ people and the fact that the so-called conversion practices and medically unnecessary and non-consensual surgeries performed on intersex children were still not prohibited in Ireland. Isn't that a conflict of terms? You can't have it both ways. But in the Dáil earlier this month, the Justice Minister confirmed that it is not minded to introduce hate speech legislation, saying, I am fairly satisfied that Ireland has transposed the European Council framework decision on combating certain forms and expressions of racism. It's a framework, it doesn't appear to be a directive. So I'm fairly satisfied that Ireland has transposed the European Council framework decision on combating certain forms and expressions of racism and xenophobia in a manner appropriate and tailored to the domestic law in Ireland. So he says he's not going to do it. And I suppose there's something to that. Helen McEntee had to withdraw her hate speech bill, but there are still certain things on it which I believe are unconstitutional. If I had the money, I'd challenge it. I assure members of the House that Ireland's position has been communicated to the European Commission. Yeah. So that's fair enough. I mean, that's what we want them to do. That position is that the framework decision is fully transposed in Irish legislation in a manner appropriate and tailored to the domestic system of criminal law and procedure. And it is in line with Article 46 of the Constitution, which expressly respects and protects the right to freedom of expression and of people to express their views freely. And the Irish Constitution still holds sway. If it's not in the fundamental documents of the EU which were voted into law here, it is not the law. The European law only takes over where it's a matter that was voted on and in the treaties on the fundamental principles of the European Union. And this is not in it. And so forth, they can't take away our right to free speech. Sinn Féin indicated yesterday that they will be holding Mr. O'Callaghan to these words. Now, the party of mass migration of Mary Lou and the hijab, I think that my efforts in Carrickmacross, my speech in Carrickmacross, has rattled the daylights out of them. It's left them knowing that they're never going to get into government in Ireland. And if I've achieved that, I've achieved a lot. They should never have been for putting the people of other countries ahead of us. And they get in here, irrespective of what persecution or not. Nobody knows what the persecution is. They could have to leave their own country for speaking their mind. And they come over here and then they expect me not to be able to speak my mind. They can't have it both ways. The parties now, in the Sinn Féin, the party spokesperson, Justice spokesperson, Matt Carthy, told Extra IE, we will not support the introduction of hate speech legislation that would be used to impede the fundamental right to freedom of expression and right to protest. Well, now, would he go a step further and stop the migration and stop it fairly quick? I hear Simon Harris, the Duracell bunny, has come out and said we've too many migrants. The harm is done, Simon. The lads who have got all the billions for this are now buying the land that farmers have worked for and worked alongside and relations and all, and they're given 2 million more than the farmer himself can give, destroying our entire rural landscape and way of life. And that has to cut in to the votes of Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin. But the election of Catherine Connolly does indicate, and my standing for election, that the Irish voter is not prepared to back us. So what I have to do is make the Irish voter go out and fight the war themselves, and we'll stay at home. Okay, so now, challenge to Fianna Fáil leadership begins, and Mr. Martin nurses wounds of the botched election. Racism, discrimination and intolerance cannot be tolerated. So this is what Matt Carthy says. I don't know who says that. It must be addressed and eliminated, but that requires a much wider social approach rather than simply a policing response. It's about education, integration, building strong communities. How do you build a strong community where the state actively engages in the rape of its own people, 10-year-old girls? Rape, R-A-P-E. That's what Mr. Carthy is trying to get over. Minister O'Callaghan has indicated that he will not be introducing further legislation and has informed the European Commission that he is satisfied that it has met its obligations. In relation to the transition of the European Council's framework decision, who agreed to that, by the way, on combating certain forms of racism, xenophobia into Irish law. Does anyone know what xenophobia means? It's a stupid word. Once you see them using the big words, you know you have them beat. Xenophobia. I believe this is the correct approach. Sinn Féin is clear that there is important distinction between hate speech and hate crime. You come over and meet a person from somewhere, India or somewhere, and you hit him and bleed him, and that's a crime. I mean, what's the problem? Well, that's the law for since the foundation of the state and before that. Assaults, harassment and threat to kill or harm, coercion, criminal damage aggravated by hate should have that aggravated factor reflected in the gravity of how these crimes are treated in law. Why? Why should a person who came here last week and gets a thump not be treated the same as a person who came here and gets a thump from somewhere else? An Italian tourist came to Dublin easily 14 years ago and was badly beaten that he was put in a wheelchair. And they're saying that the criminals who did that should get a lesser sentence than the criminals who attack the guy, if there was such a person, who rapes or kills people in Ireland. That's essentially what they want. They want a premium law for the migrants, and they want a lesser law for the Irish. Now, so it's clear that there is an important distinction between hate speech and hate crime. Well, that's a sensible, I have to say, that's sensible. Assaults, harassment, threat to kill or harm and coercion, criminal damage aggravated by hate speech should have an aggravating factor reflected. Well, I disagree there, folks. Get to understand this. There was, I think there was an Italian tourist beaten up recently there in Dublin. I think there was. So an Englishman comes over for a night out and he has a few drinks and he's singing on the street. They go over and beat him up, and the people does it get a fine. And yet, if he's here off the boat, nobody knows who he's here. He could be let out of a Turkish jail or a jail in Africa and convicted of several rape crimes. We get the jail instead of him. That's the logic of Matt Carthy's position. It doesn't make sense. In the end of the day, Sinn Féin is Fianna Fáil with weapons hidden in the thatch. Right. The report also recommended improving the availability of accommodation for people seeking and granting international protection. Make more money for these boys that buy these hotels, destroy our tourism, let them buy all the land in the country, let them buy all the homes, let them become the richest and the new elite in Ireland. That's what they're saying. And no evidence that they're being persecuted. They're coming here for the dole. How come Poland came out last week, a minister, and recommends cutting the Ukrainian dole by half? Why are we giving the migrants all this money? Why wouldn't they come here? How are they managing in America? They're not allowed in now. Only 9 came in across the Mexican border, according to Trump. And what are they doing? The fact is they're economic migrants, and some of them are coming here to undermine our own security. And the EU has the cheek to worry about Russia invading and coming in when they allow the invasion by the entire world of people they don't have a clue about. And when a Christian woman, Assie Bibi, wanted to come into Ireland, they refused because it would offend Muslims. And the Irish people go out and they vote for this. That's what Catherine Conley's election meant. The Irish people are crazy for the support and the help of criminals, rapists and thugs and people who cut people's heads off. That's what's called hate speech by me. I'm open for debate. Could they not consider, instead of jailing me, have a debate about it and see what we fish out? The report also recommended, more accommodation. So the Council of Europe wants the houses taken, take the houses of people here. If your granny leaves you her house, take it off you, give you a few euros or a few government bonds and give it to the migrants. That's the reality. And the reality is that the European Union is now in a state of shock. President Trump sees that there's no point in trying to change them because no matter what way the European Union goes, people are going to vote Nanny. And 46 or something, 7% of the Americans voted extreme Nanny, Tampax Tim, in the last election. So you have a very divided vote there. But in Europe, the vote is more. It's probably 54 or 5% Nanny. And then they want the people who are the victims of their nannyism to go out and give their life's blood to fight Russia, which is not Nanny. We're not going to go. You've forced me to live in a nanny state. I can get by, I can adopt, I can have a good life, and I can make me videos. But you think I'm going to plough through the muck? I have a Wellington on me here. I was out the fields the other day and I had to do a wee job, put a wee bit of wire, and the muck is so bad. This is down near a bog, and here's my Wellington. Here's my Wellington here. I just have it here because making the video. Look at it. I didn't wash it. Why? Because I'm going back again to finish the job. I just need a bit more materials. But don't please tell me how to fix gaps on that. This is what it means. This is what you'll have in Ukraine when you go nannying, when you go fighting for the nannies. The water will be coming up above your knees. Your trousers and your gear will all be wet. If you're knocked on your backside will get wet. And there'll be nowhere to dry it. For these villains, for Catherine Conley, for Jim O'Callaghan, for Mary Lou MacDonald and her jab, you go and fight them yourselves. You fight them yourselves. We're not fighting them. watch the media. The ads, they're watching me so tight that they're liable not to put out ads now. But I believe you're going to see a remilitarisation of Ireland. They'll throw our neutrality out the window. They'll get away around that, and the Fianna Fáil voters that I know will go out, I'm a great old Fianna Fáil man. Hey God, where is Fianna Fáil? Look what happened in the case of the presidential election. 7,000 voted for a fella that he didn't want the job at all. That's how much it is. 7,000 didn't even want the job. Well, yous go out and plough through the muck. Yous go out and carry the backpack is about 20 kilos. It's the weight of a small bag of coal and a little more. And the rifle is 9 pounds. If you're carrying a machine gun, it can be 11 pounds weight. You go on. We're not going. My children, my grandchildren will not be let go. And I'll influence every single parent. No, we're not fighting. And we won't fight for Ireland until Ireland gets a government that puts Ireland first. And that is unlikely. And that means we're not going to fight at all. And if Putin lands into Wexford and Donegal, we give them a drop of tails, here it goes. Maybe a wee drop of poutine some lad might have. I'm not going to lose any sleep about you or your bloody Putin and your fishnet tight generals and all the rest. My answer to you folks